What's up, you guys? Good morning, good evening, whatever applies to you. Hope you are staying safe. And today I'm going to talk about why the cold stoppage approach to get rid of an addiction is far superior to the baby step approach, right? In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of points where you get more benefits and faster recovery really, potentially in the cold turkey approach as opposed to baby step approach. As you can see, I don't have anything on the board because I don't want anything on the board for today's video, right? So let's get into the video. Sit back, relax, and pay attention. The first thing I want to tell you about the cold turkey stoppage approach is that it ensures the elimination of the thing that you are addicted to and elimination of potential addictions really if you have done the cold turkey stoppage right. So why is this important if you ask? Here's why. When you stop that, right, when you stop what you are addicted to, like cold turkey, that way you get more room for your brain to rewire, and also in that way you get better understanding of why you keep falling back into this death trap, right, this death trap of addiction. So in that way you can really assess the situation better in the cold turkey stoppage, whereas in the baby step approach you don't get that, right, because you don't have that much time where the thing that you are addicted to is at an absence, right? So when you are stopping it, like taking baby steps, stopping it in a step-by-step manner, you don't have much time where you don't have that thing in your life, right? So in that way there's not much room for you to really understand why you are falling back onto this. And also it's like it doesn't address the emotional side the same way, right? The most important aspect of addiction recovery is tackling that emotional side of the addiction, right? And in the baby step approach it's almost non-existent. So therefore the cold turkey stoppage is superior that way. Also in the cold turkey approach, right, cold turkey stoppage approach, you can also have much better room for yourself to incorporate more healthier coping mechanisms instead of falling back into the addiction, right? Because there's this clear enough distinction. So after that, I just mentioned the brain rewiring process. The second point I want to make is actually related to brain rewiring, right? When you do the baby step approach, there's this thing where you progress really slow. Like the progress doesn't come anywhere near as fast as the cold turkey stoppage, right? Assuming both of those things have been done like perfectly, in the most suitable way for you as an individual, right? If we assume that the progress is much faster in the cold turkey stoppage, right, obviously when you do the baby step approach, your progress will just come back to square one if you had a slight slip up. The slightest slip up will most likely end up in you getting back to square one as far as the brain rewiring and the emotional status goes, right? But in the cold turkey stoppage, you don't have that, right? You can work on that for a couple of weeks and have a slip up. I'm not encouraging slipping up, but let's say for whatever reason you slipped up, right? That way you have uh, more room, and also you. This is the thing that I want to mention. You more than likely will not get back to you where you have started the process, right? So it's like there's more room for you to fall back onto. Again, I'm not recommending falling back onto something, but for whatever reason, if you fell back, there's more room. That's what I'm trying to say. So that way, the cold turkey stoppage is really superior, right? And in the cold turkey stoppage approach, when you relapse, when you have a little slip up, there's clear enough distinction between what you've done on your streak, what you've done when you were successfully going on and adding up hours and days and weeks, months onto your streak, compared to what went wrong. The sequence of incidences that went wrong and that led you up to that relapse, right? There's a clear enough distinction between those two. So it leads back to, again, the first point that I mentioned, right? You can assess, evaluate, and prevent a relapse that way, right? There's much more room for that. If you want to know about how to assess, evaluate, and prevent a relapse, I've done a video on that topic, and I've done a deep dive into this in that video. So I will link that down below. If you haven't watched it, you can, after watching this video, you can go watch that video as well, because I think that's one of the pieces of that puzzle where you really wanna gather, where you really wanna collect, in order for you to build up a plan that will work for you better. And the next point, the baby step approach in itself, when done properly, when done correctly, requires a lot of monitoring, like a huge amount of monitoring. And when done right, it's harder than being married to Amber Heard, like really. Might be too soon, but in any case, I'm always being team Depp, right? I'm just getting sidetracked. But anyway, coming back to the original topic that we were talking about, when you do the baby step approach, right, there's a lot of monitoring to do. But in the cold turkey stoppage, there's nowhere near monitoring to do as opposed to the baby step approach, right? So, is it always better? No. The biggest problem about cold turkey stoppage is that the first 4 to 8 weeks is going to be hard. It's going to be excruciating. But this process is all about the long run, right? Once you pass that hurdle, it's much smoother than the baby step approach. So in that case, you will be allowed to breathe more, live and breathe more with the cold turkey stoppage as opposed to the baby step approach. In the long run, we are not talking about the first 4 to 8 weeks, right? We are talking about the whole recovery process, which will take months or maybe even years, right? So we are talking about that process, right? It can take up to like 3 years, really. So we are talking about the process as a whole. In the process as a whole, the cold turkey stoppage guy will have much more room to live and breathe compared to the baby step approach guy, where the baby step approach guy who does it properly, who does it like perfectly, will more than likely to be like almost always be worried about like 5 dozens of things. It's like it's really hard. It's really hard to do it properly. It's really hard to track it properly. Whereas the cold turkey stoppage will allow you that opportunity to track it properly and do the adjustments that are necessary. So it's like it's overall a better approach than the baby step approach for the whole process. So on a second thought, I thought that this part of the video would be much easier for me to explain if I had the support of my board. I mean, of course, I'm dieting right now, so it's a little hard for me to like elaborately say things, if that's even a word. I hope that is again. Anyway, so here's the hardship on both approaches, right? So the hardship level starts at a lower level on the cold turkey approach, right? But it builds up like crazy and it drops down and smooths over time, right? In the long run, this is kind of what it looks like, right? On the baby step approach, right? It's this curve. On the baby step approach, however, you will see this like initial hardship is a little harder and the build up is like much more gradual. And at the end of the day, it doesn't drop like that either, right? In the long run, it doesn't take as much of a dive either. So in these two cases, the hardship, let's just take like this portion, right? So if you consider this portion, the hardship of the cold turkey approach is much higher, right, than the baby step approach. But as we go on and on, you will see a decreasing of the hardship of the cold turkey approach. So that's why I'm saying that the cold turkey approach in terms of hardship is much more superior to the baby step stoppage, right? So that's one thing. And also this is somewhat of an accurate depiction of what the progress would look like. Let's say if you relapse for some effed up reason, right? This would be it. Post relapse, this would be it. In most cases of the baby step approach, if you relapse, you are just back to square one, right? I'm not talking about the people who have been doing the baby step approach for like a year and a half. I'm talking about the people who are, let's say, less than 3 months, less than 4 months, or something like that, right? If they relapse at that point, you are most likely back to square one. But in the cold turkey approach, you will lose some of your progress, but not all, right? In most cases, you will not lose all your progress just because you relapsed once. So in that case, cold turkey approach is superior, right? So in summary, think of it like this: there's one approach that will require a lot more effort to initiate, that is much more excruciating at first, and things like that, will feel much more negative at first, but in the long run it's much beneficial. And the other approach is, it's nothing special. There's nothing that special, and on the long run it's much harder, right? The baby step approach is much harder to do when done correctly than the cold turkey stoppage in the long run, because an addiction recovery is not a week long thing. It's not a month long thing. It takes years sometimes. For some people it takes months. For some people it takes years, right? It cannot be done in a week or two. I mean, you build this addiction up in 5, 10, 15, or even more years. So what makes you believe that you can get rid of that addiction in 2 or 3 weeks, right? That's not how addiction recovery works. Unfortunately, I wish that it worked that way, but it doesn't. So anyway, I'm gonna, with all that being said, that's all I got for you today. So I'm gonna end the video right here. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all those YouTube stuff. And until next time, I'm High Value Guy. May the Triple Gem bless you.